Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. We'll start with our prayers.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Supadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Rajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganadita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubdeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shmitaradhanat Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shmiti Bhaktivedanta Swam Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachayani Visheshan Vadipaschat Vachalam Pangum Langhete Girim Yat Kripata Maham Vande Shri Gurum Dintaranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Hare Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining. We are in the midst of auspicious Navratra festivities, which will conclude early next week with the auspicious Dasera festival. So we offer our businesses to Sri Ramchandra, of course, to his divine energy, Durga Devi, so that we take their blessings during this auspicious time. We are continuing our journey in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad. We are starting chapter 2. The second chapter is entitled Ajamila, delivered by the Vishnudutas. So the saga of Ajamila, very, very beautiful, instructive pastime of how the Lord so mercifully delivers his devotees who may sometimes even fall into very precarious conditions, sometimes even grossly sinful. As we discussed, the 6th canto is focused on the topic of Poshanam. Not exclusively, but that is one of the principal topics discussed. Poshanam means how the Lord nourishes his devotees. So that's a very important aspect. And we discussed this briefly last time also, that while everybody is the Lord's children, those who approach him with love, even sometimes, occasionally, sometimes even momentarily, and then they forget, The Lord is so kind, so reciprocative, that the Lord takes them under his protection. Of course, to the extent that they have approached him, and then he nourishes them spiritually, so that gradually the journey that they have begun will rapidly develop, and they will come closer and closer and closer to him, so that the jivas ultimately attain their real good fortune. The unfortunate reality for most conditioned souls is they do not even know what it is that is actually desirable. And that is why generally living entities who are trapped in Maya, fusion, that which is not, are just continuously roaming around astral existence through different life forms, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, without just trying to find a stable, happy position in this continuously changing ocean of material existence. And they fail to do that life after life after life. But if they are not fortunate to get the right association and the right guidance, or sometimes they may get it, but they may not accept it. They just get, they remain in the ocean and continue to be washed away by its waves. This particular section of Ajamil is almost, you can say, practically at the center of the Srimad Bhagavad. Srimad Bhagavad, not exactly at the center, somewhere. The Bhagavatam has 12 cantos. This is the beginning part of the 6th canto. It's a very, very important pastime, like what we mentioned. It's covered over 3 chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. We discussed in chapter 1 the background of Ajamil and the various events that led him to the point of being on his deathbed, having accrued a huge amount of sinful karma, being grabbed by the Yamadutas. Yamadutas are the enforcement directorate of the justice system of the universe. They are the ED. They know exactly everybody's accounts and they know how to punish. So they are special agents, very well trained under the auspicious leadership of Yamaraj. A very, very special, empowered agent of the Supreme Personality. So we discussed about how Ajamil was in his very early life devoted to Lord Hari, later totally got distracted from the path of devotional service and took to gross sinful life. Not only did he give up his spiritual practices, his Brahmanical activities, whatever rules and duties of Varnashram that he was following, but he took a low-class prostitute to be his wife and lived a very low-class life. He abandoned his elderly parents, he abandoned his chaste wife. He lived with this prostitute, had 10 children through her, adopted all kinds of unclean behavior and gross sinful activities, to the point of cheating, plundering, hurting others. So he really went to the other extreme. And surely he must have gathered a huge amount of negative karma when he was around 88 years of age. When his time came and he still had a very young boy whom he had named Narayan. Prabhupada says in the purport, we can imagine that a person who was 88 years old and just had a very young son, that means how attached he was to materialistic life. Because generally, once a person is 50 and beyond, it's expected that they are not too excited about various things that more younger people are excited about. Generally, people tend to become sober, but Ajamil, rather than becoming sober, continued to remain attracted to this low-class lady. As he was being hounded by the Yamadutas who had cast the Yamapasha, grab his subtle body and his soul and pull him out because his time was up. Those who are pious people, they don't need to be dragged out of their body and taken away. Discuss this, right? Only those who are to be punished have to be dragged away. Those who are to be rewarded, they are given invitation. They're nicely escorted. Those who are to be punished, nobody comes to a punishment center by invitation. They have to be dragged. So that is Yamaduta's roles and responsibilities. Check the account, find them out, grab them, drag them, bring them to the court of Yamaraj where they will be given proportionate punishment according to their sins. So Ajamil, as he was being dragged out, he saw his little boy whose name he had kept as Narayan. Now this is very interesting that somehow, the Acharya says somehow because of some sukruti that he had, he named his boy as Narayan because of some previous impression. So that was also his good fortune because he named his son as Narayan, that led him calling out the name of Narayan many times in his last few years of his life. The age of the little son is not mentioned, but it is said that he was speaking in very broken language. It was probably, less than 5 years of age, probably 3 years of age. But he would always call him Narayan, Narayan. The little boy Narayan would always be around him. Of course, he was never referring to Lord Narayan. He was always referring to the son Narayan. But through all these activities, he accrued pious credits. At the time of death, as the Yamadutas came panicking, as he looked around, he saw his little boy Narayan and he somehow helplessly called out the name of Narayan, actually referring to his son. As if saying, "Oh son, help me." Just because when one is in a very desperate situation, it's not that the son could have done anything. But whoever is nearby, we just call out of desperation. "Someone help me." Narayan happened to be there. This little boy. And as the Acharyas mentioned, somehow, by good fortune, he called out the name of his son. And when he called out the name of his son, he called out in a very helpless state, with deep intensity. Some acharyas mentioned that he originally called out the name of Narayana as referring to his son, but when he echoed the name of Narayan, he then recollected also Narayan, because he remembered because of his past samskaras in his early years. And that kind of a helpless calling out of Narayan immediately attracted the Vishnudutas. And they are super fast. So instantly, the purport Prabhupada says, Lord Vishnu dispatched the Vishnudutas. Go. Rescue this person. He has called out my holy name. So Vishnudutas reached on the spot and we discussed the wonderful conversation. They came there, 4 Vishnudutas. Why 4? Prabhupada mentions because the name Narayan has 4 syllables. Na, Ra, Ya, Na. 4 Vishnudutas. And why 3 Yamadutas came? Because he performed 3 kinds of sinful activities. The body, by the body, through the mind, and through words. So 3 Yamadutas versus 4 Vishnudutas. Of course, Vishnudutas are not in any way threatening, but their power and influence and their effulgence and their grave cloud-like rumbling voices made the Yamadutas look very tiny in front of them. They were pretty surprised because it was quite unusual for them to be interrupted in their job. That never happened because they always thought that we have the warrant to arrest. Who can challenge our warrant? Because our warrant is given by the most powerful Yamaraj, who everyone fears, because who doesn't fear death? And for them, who can be beyond Yamaraj? It's the be all end all for them. Of course, they have the concept that there is Lord Hari, but in their normal jobs, they rarely encountered anybody from that domain. Because their whole job description is to seek out sinful people. So anyway, this is the background. We have already discussed all this. So when forbidden by the Vishnudutas, the Yamadutas asked, who are you and what is this about? So anyway, a very beautiful conversation happened, and we have discussed this in the last conversation, how the Vishnudutas questioned the Yamadutas. Oh, you are messengers of Yamaraj, you are his representatives, you are from the Department of Justice. So they took a viva on the spot. Tell me what is dharma, tell me what is adharma, who is punishable, who's not punishable, how one can be free from all kinds of punishment. And these people were well trained from the Yamaraj University. They gave confidently various answers. So essentially, they were trying to establish, these are the rules. This is what Ajamila has been doing. So he is guilty. And since he is guilty and since he has not atoned, he performed sins and he has not atoned. He is in our jurisdiction. So that is where the conversation ended in our last class. So after the Yamadutas gave their explanation, gave their understanding of dharma and adharma, they normally expected that the Vishnudutas would say full marks, because they knew their answers really well. But the level of understanding of the Vishnudutas is so much higher. The Vishnudutas are considered not only very knowledgeable, but expert in logic and argument. Naya Kovidaha. They told the Yamadutas, just like Krishna chastised Arjun, no? You are speaking as if you are very knowledgeable, but actually you are speaking foolish words. So Vishnudutas tell the Yamadutas, Are Baba, you are supposed to be representatives of dharma, but why you are talking adharmic things? You are about to punish somebody who is not fitting to be punished. Don't you know? Punishing somebody who doesn't deserve to be punished is also a big aparadh. It's also a big fault. Don't you know that those who are in a position of power, especially people who are like king, or for example, of course, king in this sense, because Yamaraj and others represent the Department of Justice, it is the king's duty to met out justice. The role of the king is like that of a father. He's supposed to protect. He's supposed to be extremely fair and impartial. He's supposed to understand dharma and adharma properly. Must be endowed with good qualities, must be equal to all. Because if the justice system is not fair, then where will the citizens go? Correct? Isn't this actually in today's time also such a big challenge? I mean, on paper, we have a technically justice system, but we actually get justice. Is the system effective at meting out justice? Most people feel that they don't even want to go to the justice system. Anyway, I don't want to get into that topic, but that is the reality of today's times. And the king is responsible for that, and is punishable for not performing his duties. So the Vishnudutas are chastising the Yamadutas that you're not, basically they're saying you're not doing your job properly, you don't know, your assessment is wrong. And as they are saying this, the Yamadutas are scratching their head, Baba, I just explained to you everything that I have calculated and everything as per our standard operating procedure. We have checked all the checklists that we are supposed to check, and we have concluded. But still these Vishnudutas are chastising, and the Vishnudutas continued. And they quoted a verse. Yad yad acharati shreyan itarastad tad ihate sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. This verse is almost same like the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, if you recollect. The Bhagavad Gita verse is slightly different. Krishna says the same thing to Arjuna. Yad yad acharati sheshchas tattate vetorojana sayat pramanam kurute janastad anuvartate. Slightly different words, but essentially almost the same, 70-80% same verse. And there are a few verses in the Gita which are quite similar to some Bhagavatam verses. At least there are a few. I don't recollect all of them on top of my head, but there are a few. So it says that you are representing Yamara, you're representing leadership. You have to be able to follow the right standards. Because an innocent citizen doesn't know properly what is dharma and adharma. He's like lying in the lap of his leader, who's supposed to guide him and take care of him and properly give justice to him. So a leader or anybody who's occupying a leadership position like you all are occupying, Yamaraj department, you must actually be kind-hearted. Otherwise, how people will have faith in you? So like this, they go on and chastise, and the Yamadutas are still not understanding why I'm being chastised. This happens many times, right? Sometimes in life, we live in a particular paradigm. This is correct, this is wrong. And we are so convinced we are right. And then somebody comes who has a higher level of understanding, a more profound understanding, and he says, you are wrong. Sorry, I have thought through this whole thing. I'm all sorted out. Like they say, nowadays, today's modern language, I'm sorted out. I am very clear. This is how things are, and this is what should be done. And I have concluded on the philosophy of life. Suddenly somebody comes around and says, dismisses. And when one comes across a challenging situation, and when one actually opens up and is open to being challenged and open to learn, then one comes to a higher level of understanding. So this is also an important learning process. Yeah. And this continues. This is not a one-time event. Even in our own spiritual lives, we'll have to continually go to a more deeper and deeper and deeper understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So this is the reality. Even though the verses of the Gita and the Bhagavatam will remain the same from now until the end of our life, our depth of understanding and appreciation of the deeper meaning of those verses will evolve over time. This is the truth. The truth of everybody's experience. Because we can only understand something based on how evolved our consciousness has been. We cannot understand very profound things at a lower level of consciousness. To understand a slightly different version of it. It may not be wrong, but it may not have the full depth. So Yamadutas are good, pious, well-trained people. They are scratching their head. What are these Vishnudutas talking about? But they are so powerful, they are so influential. So seeing the big question mark on their faces, even though they didn't explicitly ask that question to the Vishnudutas seeing the question mark, correct? Sometimes the teacher asks us a question and we look at the teacher with a blank face and the teacher understands this guy's, इसको question ही समझ में नहीं आया. He didn't even understand the question. It's like an out of syllabus question. Sometimes when we see a paper, we are not well studied. We see some question, we're trying to relate. What chapter is this related to? Don't even understand the question. So they are wondering which chapter from my Yamaraj course syllabus is this question from? What have I missed in my course? I studied so well. I passed with distinction. So some things were not covered in that syllabus, and we'll come to that topic. Because usually Yamadutas don't encounter these kind of cases. These are very unusual cases. So usually, when you are trained for, maybe, 90% of the scenarios. And this was not even a 1%. This was like a 0.001% of the scenarios. Very sinful person at the end of his life suddenly helplessly chants the name of Narayan. So that scenario was not covered in their syllabus at all. They had no clue how to handle this. They are just following their checklist. Their checklist did not have a checkbox saying, did he chant the name of the Lord at the time of death? So they are thinking, what have I missed? So Vishnudutas, seeing their big question mark on their face, they only educate them in a very firm but humble way. They basically tell him that you consider him punishable, but please understand that Ajamil is not punishable because he has already atoned for all his sins. What to speak of this life? He has atoned for the sins for the last 1 million lives. Again, the Yamadutas are very confused because, Are, kuch kiya hi nahi. What atonement did he do? We have checked all our atonement checklist also. Did he do tapa? Did he do yajna? Did he follow according to the various smritis and shrutis, the various atonements for his sin? Nothing. And then the Vishnudutas reveal what was not known to the Yamadutas. They say he has atoned because he has chanted in a helpless way the name of Narayan at the time of his death. Vivashaha. Vivashaha is in a helpless way. Called out Narayan. These names of Narayan are the means of liberation. Even though he was calling his son, because that's what the Yamadutas would say. We were there, no? We saw him calling, but he was calling his son, he was not calling Lord Narayan. The Vishnudutas explain, even though he was calling his son, he uttered Narayan in a helpless way. And in bracket, indirectly, he remembered Narayan through that process. And that is why he has already atoned for all his sins. So your calculation is wrong. His net balance is already 0. What are you trying to punish him for? His karma is already clear. And this kind of a use case was, totally bewildering to the Yamadutas. What happened? So sinful, and suddenly in one moment we come there to take him and account gayab. Saf. What? What is this? So seeing their bewilderment, Vishnudutas give further explanation. And the Yamadutas are listening very attentively because this kind of a situation they have never come across. And this happens, whether in our material lives or spiritual lives or even in our professional lives. Correct? We are trained to do something and suddenly a situation comes or a scenario comes, a problem comes, which is, totally outside the design of the system that we have implemented, whether in business or in technology. And suddenly you're all scratching, what went wrong? And then we find out about something which we had never thought about through a painful process. So Vishnudutas explained to Yamaraj that there are so many means of atonement which you spoke about, but the topmost and the best method of atonement is to chant the holy name of the Lord. This method of counteracting sin is so powerful that it can counteract any sin. Whether a person be a thief, a murderer, a drunkard, who has illicit relationships with the opposite sex, even one who kills cows, Brahmins, there is no sin that the chanting of the holy name cannot counteract. Simply by chanting the holy name of Vishnu, a sinful person can attract the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord, when somebody chants the name of the Lord like that, when he attracts the Lord's attention, the Lord thinks, oh, he has taken my protection, he has taken my shelter. So when somebody takes shelter of the Lord feels obliged that I must protect him. That is the nature of the Lord. The Lord immediately gives abhaya. And the least the Lord will do is to remove his sinful reactions. Of course, if he has chanted in a pure way, the Lord will give him his shelter and much more, and his devotion and much more. But even by a semblance of the name, not even pure name, even by the abhas of the name. Abhas means shadow. Or reflection is so powerful that it can burn all sins away. And that is why chanting is considered the most powerful atonement. There are so many other atonements the Vishnudutas are explaining to the Yamadutas that you are already aware of, but they are not as powerful. First of all, they don't have as much power to destroy sins as the holy name. Second is that those atonements do not totally uproot sinful tendencies within the heart. So this topic we already discussed in the previous class. Only the holy name of the Lord can uproot the sinful tendency within the heart. Because by chanting the names of the Lord, one becomes reminded and eventually absorbed in the holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So gradually, one becomes attracted to the Lord and totally forgets his attraction to material life. See, atonement will only counteract, material atonement will only counteract the sinful reaction. The sinful tendency will not go. But as one chants the holy name, not only is it extremely powerful in burning away sins, but in due course, depending again on the intensity of our chanting and how long we have been chanting, it will gradually uproot the sinful tendency to sin, and it will attract us towards the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. In that way, it actually delivers us not just to be free from sin, but ultimately delivers us to the lotus feet of the Lord by granting us pure devotion. That is why don't take Ajamila. He is already gone beyond your jurisdiction. Because you said, no, your jurisdiction is to catch and punish who? Sinful people. He was sinful 1 moment ago. Now he's quickly moved to the other side. Yes, when you came to the spot on the site, do your job. Yes, he was under your jurisdiction. But even before you could pull him out, he chanted once, helplessly, became free. So immediately now he's not under your jurisdiction. So gradually now Yamadutas are learning, oh, this is something new. We were not informed properly about this situation also. To further explain the potency of the holy name, the Vishnudutas inform the Yamadutas that please understand how powerful the holy name is. You may be wondering that he is calling out to his son, and that is why he doesn't qualify. But please understand that even when one chants the holy name indicating somebody else, even when one chants the name in a joking way, parihasya, even to sing for entertainment. Some people are just singing the name, just in a musical way, just trying to enjoy the melody. Sometimes even out of neglect, as long as one is not offensive to the name, even with these kind of imperfect ways of chanting, the name is still so powerful that it can burn all sins. Naam Abhas is still so powerful that it can burn one's sin. And those who are advanced in spiritual subjects, they know this truth. So that is the power of the Holy Name. In fact, it's not mentioned in the Bhagavatam here, but there are verses in other scriptures. I don't know if it's in the Bhagavatam from another chapter or from somewhere else. I do not recollect. I'll try to find out. It says the holy name, when chanted purely. Now, this is Namabhas. When chanted purely, the potency is so great that one cannot even commit as many sins as can be burned away by one utterance of the name. So the name is very, very powerful. And the Vishnudutas add one more thing. And the name is especially effective. What we mentioned to indirect kind of chanting, Sanketya. So it's a very beautiful word. Sanketyam parihasyam va stobam helanam evacha vaikunthanama grahanam ashesha agaharam viduhu. Famous verse. Sanketyam parihasam va. Sanketya means indicating somebody else. Parihasam means in a joke. Stobam helanam evava. Helana means neglectfully. Stobam means for entertainment. Vaikunthanama grahanam. Holy name of the Lord. Ashesha agha haram. Ashesha agha means it doesn't leave any sins behind. Total clean slate. And especially when one chants in conditions which are beyond one's control. This is a very special case. Not only did he chant, sometimes we may just chant inattentively. One may not be offensive, but one may chant indicating somebody else. But please understand, in Ajamil's case, it was not just that, he also qualified another criteria. What was that criteria? If a person chants or manages somehow to chant the name of the Lord, even if whether he's referring to the Lord or not referring to the Lord, if he manages to chant the holy name of the Lord, when one is suddenly falling down, patitaha, for example, if one is falling from the top of his house, falling downstairs, and suddenly, as one falls, one says, Krishna, Ram, Hey Narayan, while falling, or while sleeping, not sleeping, slipping. Since one is walking on the road, sometimes you're walking in the bathroom, sometimes the floor is slippery. There is some soap water, you slip. And as you are slipping and you are falling, you chant the name of Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, and you fall and you're breaking your bones or you're beating up, you're being attacked by weapons. So suddenly in a very difficult situation, sometimes even when one is very, very deeply afflicted by pain and high fever, or when is suddenly bitten by a serpent or attacked by somebody, hey Krishna. So in these kind of scenarios, if somehow the name comes, then that utterance is considered very powerful. Because at that time to utter the name spontaneously is very difficult. You try this. Try means you don't try to sleep and chant that. Next time something like this happens, see what comes out from your mouth. Because when it's actually happening, you don't have time to think, I am sleeping. Now what I should do? I heard in Bhagavatam class, I should chant. There is no time to process all this. It just happens. So spontaneously, what will come out? What most people will say? Most people will just say, in India, they will, oh ma, will remember their mother, or they will, some cuss words will come out from their mouth nowadays. Very few people will be able to utter something meaningful in such situations spontaneously. These are not thought through words, just comes up. So in such situations, if the name of the Lord comes, even though it may not be directly referring to the Lord, if it's directly referring to the Lord, even better. Even though it is not directly referring to the Lord, such names are very powerful to counteract, especially in such situations. And if it is directly referring to the Lord, then even so much more powerful. So you see, Mr. Ajamila, your culprit, was in a helpless situation, just about to die, and he chanted the name of Narayan. So our checklist is much more comprehensive than yours. And these are special cases where the jurisdiction comes to us. It is not in your jurisdiction. So your jurisdiction is over. It was applicable until a few moments ago. Now your jurisdiction has. So that is the power of the holy name. So bhakti is so powerful that it can totally burn away, not just karma. Because karma, of course, usually we are more excited about burning karma. All karma is finished. Perhaps for many of us, because we are chanting the holy names purely. Very likely for most of us, most of our sanchita karma is already burnt away. But we don't just want to burn our past karma, we want to remove the tendency to sin. Because if the tendency to sin is not removed, the rate at which we will produce karma will go on and on and on, and it is enough to keep us going. Of course, if we keep the process of chanting going, we'll be burning up that as well. But the point is, we want to put a stop. So to put a stop, the tendency to sin. So as we discussed this very elaborately, and I will not go to that again, there's a very beautiful verse. It says, Taistani aghani puyante tapodana pratajvihi na adharmajam tad dhridayam tad apisangri sevaya. Austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods may destroy sins, but they cannot uproot the material desires within the heart. But if one sincerely serves the lotus feet of the Lord, then the root of sin, namely the sinful desire, is destroyed. And then to conclude their explanation, the Vishnudutas give two examples to help the Yamadutas understand the power. So that just like there is a huge field of dry grass. I saw one small YouTube video long back. This happened in China. Father and son were in their field. The field had fully dried up. I think they must have harvested. It was like full of dried grass, and they were sitting there and they were doing something. And somehow they lit a fire on the grass. But they didn't realize that as soon as they lit fire, they were hoping that it will just be a fire there. As soon as they lit the fire immediately spread in all directions. The whole acre of their field, everything was burnt to ashes. They couldn't do anything to stop it. So sometimes even we may not be even intending to burn everything, but the holy name is so powerful that it will burn all the sins. This is one example. The other example that is given is just like a medicine. A powerful medicine, an effective medicine is effective whether you know that you're taking the medicine or you don't know that you're taking the medicine. Correct? Especially for children, if you tell them take medicine, they'll not take. So then you tell, this is chocolate, this is sweet syrup, this is sweet, you take this. So they don't need to know how it works, whether it is medicine. Once it goes in, the medicine knows what to do. Person, whether he knows or he doesn't know, doesn't matter. So the holy name is so powerful that it will act no matter whether one knows or one doesn't know. So if the holy name is so powerful that it acts even in such situations, Vishnudutas conclude by saying that how much powerful it will be if you do it knowingly and with right intention. Now, this is not to say that we can chant anyways. Sometimes many people get excited about the Ajamila episode. I was listening to one class by Gaurang Prabhu. He was telling that he was preaching to some people in IIT, and one boy came to him and he said, I'm just going to tell this in Hindi, then I'll translate. Oh, gee, Ajamil ka story sabse badhiya hai. I love this Ajamil story. I asked, why you like it? He is the best example for me. Why is the best example? जिंदगी भर मजा किया और उसके बाद भगवत धाम भी गया. All throughout his life he had a good time, and after that he went to the Lord's abode also. This is the mentality, at a more neophyte level. A neophyte thinks, I want to do all kinds of things and enjoy materialistically, and then I want to go to God's abode. So anyway, so Gaurang Prabhu made him, tried to explain to him that, Ajamil was able to manage that, but this is not the standard procedure. You cannot expect that you will lead a sinful life, maza karke, doing indiscriminate sense enjoyment, and you will be able to chant the Lord's name helplessly at the time of your death. This episode is a rare episode, and the episode is mentioned to make us understand what is the potency of the name. But these kind of situations cannot be planned and done. The norm is, if you have been leading a sinful life, you will only get a sinful thought at the time of your death. Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever state of mind one has had throughout his life is the state of mind that will come at the time of death. Of course, Ajamil's situation was a bit different because he had a devotional background early on in his childhood. He got distracted, but in the last few years of his life, he was continuously chanting the name of Narayan, even though he was chanting it for referring to his son. And somehow he indirectly, through his past Sukruti, it so happened that that name spontaneously came and his son was name was Narayan. If it wasn't Narayan, if it was Alex, or and nowadays people keep all kind of funny names. So in olden times, people were conscious. At least in our land, they were so conscious to try to keep the names of the children as names of the deities, names of the Lord, his energies, great devotees. Because through that process, there is so much utterance of the name. And Ajamil's case is proof of how it came to his rescue. Anyway, so that's another detailed topic. So the Vishnudutas explained the situation. This is the power. These are all, the potencies. Briefly, they didn't go into too much detail, but they explained to him. So having been comprehensively defeated by the Vishnudutas, the Yamadutas accepted their conclusion, they retreated, and they immediately ran back. Not only did they go back to Yamaloka instantly, they immediately went to Yamaraj to ask him this question, "Ye kya chal raha hai? What is this going on? Why you didn't include this in our syllabus?" We have been put into a very embarrassing situation today because we were not trained how to handle this scenario. So anyway, so that discussion between the Yamadutas and Yamaraj is covered in the next chapter. So we will come that in the next chapter. So I'll park that episode for now. So as soon as the Yamadutas went, so they had tied the soul of the soul, in the sense, the subtle body of Ajamil. So they let it go, and they went away. And Ajamil was, as I mentioned, this whole thing was a Bhagavatam class at the time of death for Ajamil. Listen to Yamadutas who gave him an assessment of his current status. And then he understood how he had been saved. He understood the glories of the holy name. He realized his folly, his mistakes. And please remember, he had not died. He had not died. His soul was about to be pulled out. So he was like just about to die. And the Vishnudutas came and stopped the Yamadutas. So he goes back into his body because he went back, but he survived the death experience because the Yamadutas went back. He was so overwhelmed. And then, he felt so grateful to the Vishnudutas, who had saved him. So he was feeling so grateful that he was, he started offering obeisances to the Vishnudutas as the Yamadutas departed. And he was about to speak something, to try to thank them and say something to them. But before he could speak, the four Vishnudutas disappeared. Suddenly disappeared. So the Bhagavatam says that the Vishnudutas wanted to create in him an eagerness to see the Vishnudutas again. That's why they disappeared. So the Lord sometimes does like that also. He may give momentary darshan, then he will disappear, just to increase the eagerness, the heart of the devotee. So this kind of a feeling of separation actually from the Lord and his devotees is actually healthy because it acts as a propellant for rapid spiritual advancement. So Ajamil survived the episode. Now he's sitting on his bed. I am still alive. Yamadutas went back, Vishnudutas disappeared. Now he's reflecting on the whole conversation and realized, what have I been doing? Now I understand, again, my memory has come back. Nashto moho sprutir labdhva, like Arjuna says to Krishna, right, at the end of the Gita. All my doubts and illusion is dispelled, and now I know what is right, what is wrong. So he became again very clear about what is dharma and what is adharma. So Ajamil became very, very repentful. So this is a very important milestone in the journey of a devotee. Paschatap, that the living entity becomes at one point genuinely repentful of his materialistic way of life and sincerely, even though he may not be able to immediately give up his sinful activities, at least. So this kind of repentance is healthy and desirable. So this repentance is not about going into depression. Oh, I'm so bad. It's not about that. The repentance has to be followed by a positive activity of adopting the right measures to rectify oneself. So even if there is punishment due for rectification, a sincere sadhaka is willing to go through that and transform himself, change his status and have a bright future. So Ajamil actually genuinely repented. He was reflecting, how sinful I have been. I was actually situated so nicely as a Brahmana worshipping the Shaligram Shila, and look at what happened. I got attracted to this woman. I quickly gave up my discrimination. So he was, cursing himself, fie on me, I did like this. And then he became very determined. Now enough is enough. I cannot go on like this. So his repentance transformed into a determination. What was that determination? Enough, done. No more sins. It is said he immediately decided that I am not continuing to live like this anymore. So he left his home. In fact, he gave up the association of the prostitute. He gave up all his sinful ways. And he decided that now I will make a serious effort to purify myself. Because I have now got a second chance. Just imagine, I was almost on the way to hell. Somehow, by good fortune, somehow the name of Narayan came. What was the chance that it would come out from my mouth? Somehow it happened. And I got a second chance. Now I can't lose this. Now if I lose this chance, then I am finished. I must now endeavor to purify. It's not that immediately at that moment, all sinful desires went from Ajamil's heart and he became 100% pure. No. Yes, his past sins were destroyed, but he wasn't yet fully perfected and qualified to go back to God. There was more work to be done. Why? Because he chanted Namaparat. He did not chant Shuddhanam. One has to chant the Shuddhanam and purify one's heart completely of all materialistic desires before one can go back. So now I must put in that effort. Now I will endeavor to control my mind and senses so that I don't get entrapped in darkness and ignorance. I will disentangle myself from materialistic activities, which caused me to become so degraded that I got attached to this kind of a low-class woman. I will free now myself from all these lusty activities. I'm 88 and I'm still been attached to all kinds of lusty activities. Enough. I should have stopped at 50, but 88, but better late than never. So now it's time to wrap up. Now I must purify myself. I must become compassionate and merciful to all living entities. And I must always absorb my mind in Krishna consciousness. So he became very, very determined to purify himself. So this is also a very great milestone. He was not immediately fully purified. He was going to come to that resolute determination to become purified. It's a significant milestone in the journey of the Jiva. That I want to become a pure devotee. I want to come out from the cycle of birth and death. Yes, I'm still entrapped. I still have material desires. I haven't escaped them. But even to realize that I'm in a fallen condition and that I'm determined to purify myself, it's a very, very significant milestone. So with that small association with the Vishnudutas, his Krishna conscious memory came back. That is the power of association of sadhus. This Vishnudutas association is so purifying. Yep. Paramahamsas. Immediately, by the power of that association, he got the strength and he became detached. He said he packed up, he left his home, and he went to Haridwar, north of India, along the bank of the Ganges. He stayed there in a Vishnu temple. He would wake up early, do his sadhana, worship the deity, perform services in the temple. They had a very regulated life, engaging in seva and sadhana in the Vishnu temple on the bank of the Ganges. Controlled his mind and senses, was very careful to follow all the regulative principles. So basically what he did, followed 4 regulative principles. He chanted the holy names, he performed seva, which is what we are also trying to do. Exclusively, of course, he was at that point of his life that he could do that exclusively. And that is why we all, at some point in our life, must work towards that goal of being exclusively. Of course, we may be at our home. It doesn't matter. It's not necessary we have to necessarily go to Haridwar. Can Vrindavan, and other places. Even in our house. What is more important is what are we endeavoring for. So he performed his devotional service very, very nicely and gradually developed his attraction and attachment to the Lord. And he purified himself for whatever remaining part of his life was there. It is not mentioned how many years, perhaps 100 over years, for another 10, 12 years or so. I don't remember how many years. It's mentioned somewhere, but I don't have it on top of my head. Thoroughly purified himself by doing serious, committed sadhana and became fully attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the right time came, and when he was ripe in terms of his attachment to the Lord and purification from all material desires, the same 4 Vishnudutas whom he had seen at the time of his death and suddenly had disappeared, they came back. Hello, Ajamil, remember us? This time we are not just come to save you from Yamadutas, but we have come to take you. Now you are ready. Whatever had to be done, you have done. You have passed all tests. You have purified yourselves. So we have brought the Vaikuntha Viman with us. Please alight. We have the great pleasure of escorting you, our boss, our divine, the divine abode of the Supreme Personality of God. So it is said Ajamil gave up his material body, attained a Siddha Deha. He attained a body like that of the Vishnudutas, rammed form. And very beautifully escorted in the Vimanas, flew through the skies on that Vimana. As he was on his way to Vaikuntha, the various Devatas were also showering flowers on him. This is what typically happens. So Ajamil boarded this airplane made of gold and went directly to the abode of God. So Shukadeva Goswami concludes this chapter by summarizing how Ajamil, even though from a sinful background, was saved by the holy name. So Shukadeva Goswami especially emphasizes what I mentioned earlier, that if the holy name is so powerful, even with an indirect attempt, even by Naam Abhas, imagine the kind of effect that will have for those who are intentionally chanting the holy name directed towards the Lord with devotion, with attention. What it can give you. And that is the key message. So sometimes we may be thinking, oh, he was so fortunate. But please remember, his fortune of that episode led him to do what we are already doing now. Which means to take shelter of the process of devotional service with faith and determination. I mean, hopefully we are all there, or at least we are in our way there. So at the end of the day, the path to Vaikuntha is this. It is not that just by uttering the name like Ajamil, he went immediately back to God. But it gave him the necessary determination to seriously engage in devotional service so that he can attain the supreme abode. The chapter concludes by saying a Falashruti. Please listen. So all of you have listened to the 2 chapters, so this will apply to all of you. One who hears or describes this confidential historical narration with faith and devotion. Faith, which means whatever glories of the holy name are described, we accept it. We don't think, story. So thodi hota hai. Not like this. Just exaggeration, just to encourage people to chant. If you think like this, you will not get the phal. It is an offense to think that the holy name of the Lord is potency, is imaginary or an exaggeration. So those who either hear or describe this pastime, this historical narration with faith and devotion, is no longer doomed to hellish life, will not be approached by the Yamadutas, and will be respectfully received and worshipped in Vishnu Loka. So that is the blessing. Okay. So if you have fulfilled the condition of faithfully listening, then you can be sure just by this activity also you will never see Yamadutas again. Okay, so that's a wonderful blessing. There's one last verse. This concludes the chapter. I'll conclude with that. Mriyamano Hare Nama Grinan Putropacharitam Ajamilo Api Agadhama Kinta Shraddhaya Grinan. Very beautiful verse. While suffering at the time of death, Ajamil chanted the holy name of the Lord, and although chanting was directed to his son, nevertheless returned home back to Godhead. Of course, in bracket, eventually. Therefore, if one faithfully and without offense chants the holy name, where is the doubt that he will return home back to Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Ajamil Prabhu ki jai. Hari Bol. Much. Yes, Suresh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. One small doubt, Prabhu. So, person like me, right? Unfortunately, I will not be able to see Yamadutas, but will not be able to also see Vishnudutas, right? So, we have to anyway meet Yamraj to see the accounts, right, Prabhu? And how that, who will escort us?
No need, like what I mentioned, no? There may be various ways by which our next destination will get sorted out. So we may or may not see Yamaraj face to face. Because we will not see, this is what the scriptures say. Because seeing Yamaraj and being directly assessed by Yamaraj is typically more for the sinful people. So, how exactly we'll be escorted and taken to whatever destination we go if we don't go back to Godhead, that by higher arrangements, whether we are escorted or somehow it happens, it will be in very auspicious circumstances only. It will be done very nicely only. Of course, when we become qualified, then obviously we can hope and pray for a similar blessing of being escorted, by the residents of the spiritual world, invited and escorted to the Lord's abode.
Because I remember you saying one scenario about immigration thing, right? Where everyone is like,
So the
yeah,
judgment, so everyone is assessed. Okay? Everyone is assessed, but not everybody is necessarily summoned and called to court.
okay.
Yeah, you can. I'm just giving a simple explanation. huh? So typically, the dragging to Yamaraj assembly for judgment and then being dragged into hells is more typical for more sinful souls. But that may not be the necessary path that pious entities take. They don't need to go through that. That doesn't mean that they are not assessed. Everybody is assessed by the laws of nature, and karma, bad or good, is still karma. The Yamaraj and Yamadutas department is more typically the prison department. But the justice department, of which prison is one small part, covers all assessments.
No.
You understand, right? Being summoned to court and taken by the police to jail is Yamaraj department. But law-abiding citizens are still meted out justice. But they are not summoned to court or taken to jail. How exactly every scenario plays out, I wouldn't know. But it is not necessary for us to know either.
Okay. Yeah.
So hopefully our aspiration is, that we achieve the supreme destination. Or at least, if not that, if we are serious in our life, the Lord guarantees that at least that we will at least get a devotee birth, so where we can continue from where we left off. Or if not even that, at the very least, achieve birth in a pious and rich family. We have made very little progress.
So Prabhuji, so I mean, like next life devotee, right? That means still we'll go to higher planets and come back to a devotee's family.
It depends on our desire. If we are not sufficiently purified, and if we have a desire to enjoy, then Krishna will fulfill our desire to enjoy by letting us go to the heavenly planets to enjoy for a long time. If we are serious devotees will take birth very soon in another, because they are not interested in wasting their time. Go to higher planets. So it also is so where we go is not just a function of, it's a function of both desire and deserve. So even though we may be qualified to go to heavenly planets, if we have no desire, if we just want to continue with our spiritual practices and quickly go back home, back to Godhead, we will not be forced to go to the heavenly planets. You understand?
Yeah.
So those who are more advanced are not eager to go to heavenly planets. They think of it as waste of time.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Do you want to go to heavenly planets? What is your thought?
No, Prabhu.
Okay. Good. Okay. Amit Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So just to answer Suraj Prabhu's question, I just saw in the last chapter number 1, verse number 19, it is mentioned, although not having fully realized, I'm just reading out the translation.
Yeah.
Although not having fully realized Krishna, persons who have even once surrendered completely unto his lotus feet and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities, pastimes, are completely freed from all sinful reactions. For they have accepted the true method of atonement. Even in dreams, such surrendered souls do not see Yamraj or his order carriers.
Correct.
Are equipped with ropes to bind the sinful.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So this was in the last chapter also, the same thing. They don't see Yamraj, but they are still under the system of justice of this material world, which is broadly under Yamaraj's consideration. And they'll be giving the rightful destination, but they don't have to see Yamaraj and be dealt with by Yamaraj at a personal level or by his department. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah. Sudhir Sundar Prabhu.
Prabhu, I just wanted to share a point because I kind of heard in one of the class that it was mentioned that what he said, Ajamil named his son as what Narayana, because he kind of invited some of these sadhus to his home, and what is that, sadhus asked him to what is that, the name is last time. Yes.
Okay.
That's the first point. Second point, I just wanted to alert you that the next week is the Damodara launch is starting. I just wanted to tell you so that.
Yeah. What date is the Damodar month starting?
29th.
29th. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this pastime has been discussed in many places. Many great souls have spoken on this because it's a very significant pastime. As you can understand, there are so many beautiful lessons in this pastime. I'll strongly encourage all of you to read all the translations and purports of these 3 chapters. We haven't completed the 3rd chapter yet. The story isn't over. The next chapter is a discussion between Yamadutas and Yamaraj, which is also an interesting conversation, because there also the glories of the holy name are mentioned. And Yamaraj, by the way, for your information, has updated his syllabus also after this episode. So hopefully, Yamadutas are now better trained after this episode. No, really, I am saying seriously, because these are not just some mythical stories. These are true historical episodes. So we will continue our discussion. Yeah, so the month of Damodar Kartik starts from 28th October. So it's another 1 week away. So yeah, thank you for reminding that. So there's Dasara. I think Dasara is on Tuesday, if I'm not wrong. 24th. Yeah, 24th is Tuesday, yes. So please observe Dasara, then of course Damodar, then of course Diwali also comes. So we are entering a very wonderful festival season. All the more reason to remember the Lord and perform more devotional service. So we can all also understand from the story of pastime of Ajamil how fortunate we are in our situation, that we are in the association of devotees, chanting the holy names, discussing Bhagavad regularly, making an endeavor to follow the regulative principles, serve the Lord and the devotees. So much more blessings we all can expect. If Ajamil could get so much, how much more blessings? Yeah. Anand Sundari Mataji, you want to say something?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance. Prabhu, I just want to inquire if the soul, like when according to their desire, do they choose the next body that they want to go, or the Lord chooses? I mean, according to the desire, is it any specific person that the soul chooses, or is it the Lord?
Based on the scripture says karmana deva netrena. Karmana deva netrena means based on one's karma, but guided and finally decided by the Lord. For those who are at a slightly higher level, there may be some flexibility. Some flexibility means you deserve something, but within what you deserve, there may be some range. Okay, for example, I have $5,000. I can choose whether I want to, go to a certain places which I can accommodate my budget.
Right.
Place A, place B, place C. So I may have choice within that based on my desire. So I have that option. But I cannot choose an option which is $10,000 cost of package.
Within the range that you deserve.
Yeah, yes. So it is a meeting of deserve and desire. So within the deserve, there may be some scope for adjustment. Now, how exactly all these things work, we don't know, but there is some room for choice. But at what level, how exactly it is exercised, it is not very explicit. But yes, there'll be just like what we said. No, one of the things is, even though one is qualified to go to the higher planets, if the jiva doesn't have that desire, if he's keen, no, I just want to continue service to my guru. I want to be born again in the society of devotees and continue my devotional service. So his desire will be honored.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct?
Yeah, right. Just in relation, you said Dasrath, I mean the Mother Durga, the last day. So we can, as devotees of Lord Krishna, so we can just ask her for the blessings to remove all obstacles to.
Yeah. We are all respectful to all the devatas. It is not necessary to worship them, but we should not be neglectful to respect them. You understand? There is a difference.
Yeah.
It's not necessary to worship them to attend pure devotional service, but if we should not be neglectful or disrespectful with their blessings, whether it is Lord Shiva, Durga Devi, Lakshmi Devi, Hanuman, so many. Their blessings are so valuable because some of them are pure devotees, some of them are the Lord's expansions or energies. So if we look at them not as competing deities, but we look at them as the Lord's associates, energies, servants, and so on and so forth. If we approach them with that consciousness, then there is no fault. There is no problem.
The reason
That is
I
how.
asked is because there was a devotee who asked this question. I mean, a new devotee that another devotee reprimanded them for, and they were a bit taken back because they said that I have been praying to her, and then what should we do? And this is what, like what Prabhu said, that we say that it's nothing wrong in respecting them, but you should realize who is the topmost.
Yeah. So what the problem comes usually because in these kind of cases, like what you mentioned, usually the mentality is they don't actually have faith in Krishna. They just feel, oh, what if I don't worship this devata? Maybe, something bad will happen to me because I have been worshipping them. So that kind of a thinking is because of not having proper faith.
Right.
So it is more because of that. So as devotees of Krishna, those who have faith that he is the Supreme Lord, we don't have to go out of our way to worship the devatas.
Yeah.
But if we happen to be in a situation in a temple of a devata, or we happen to be somewhere where a devata is worshipped, it is proper to offer our respects and honor and pray and take blessings of the deity. What kind of blessings? We don't ask for material blessings. We ask for the same blessing that we are asking from Krishna, which is
To be a better devotee.
to be a better devotee, to be purified. And they are all very capable of, giving that blessing. So it is not about approaching a devata. It is about with what consciousness we approach a devata. The criticism in the Bhagavad Gita is kamaiste rita jnana prapadyante anya devataha. Those who approach other devatas out of material lust, wanting materialistic benedictions from them. So that kind of mentality is condemned. The devatas by themselves are perfectly glorious, and they can offer us wonderful benedictions in our progress in Krishna consciousness. If we become offensive or disrespectful, we will actually damage our devotional service. So we should never become neglectful of them. What does neglectful mean? If we just happen to be in a situation where we happen to be in a puja of a devata or in a temple of a devata, we start thinking, oh, I am devotee of Krishna. Why should I respect this devata?
So it's Vaishnava aparad, isn't it?
Yes, it is aparad. And Rup Goswami mentions this is not just my opinion. Disrespect to the devatas is offensive. Madhvacharya also mentioned this. So we should offer proper respect. And we are supposed to offer respect even to the ant. We not offer respect to the great personalities who are, great representatives of the Lord.
And if I'm not mistaken, Prabhu mentioned in the Vaishnava etiquette class that when you offer obeisance to them, that the devatas should be on the right side.
That is about circumambulation. For us,
The temple, when we fall, the lordship is on the left. The altar is on the left. So for
yes.
devatas, supposed
I am not,
to.
no, I don't think I mentioned that. I do not know. I have not heard something like this. I don't know if somebody else may have mentioned this. I'm not aware of this. It maybe may not
Okay,
be.
bro.
Yeah, I'm not very
Thank you, bro.
sure of this part. Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
thank you. Okay, so we'll conclude for today, and I'll see you on Tuesday. We'll continue our discussion. Chaitanya Chaitanya. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki, Jai Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.